So we tend to think that giving a presentation to a room full of executives is, the scariest thing you can do at work.
Oh, absolutely. Or like leading a massive strategy meeting.
Right. But actually, if you are communicating in a second language, specifically English, the ultimate absolute boss level of communication is sitting right there on your desk. I mean, it's the ringing phone.
Yeah, it really is a profound neurological challenge when you break it down. Because, when you're speaking face-to-face in a second language, you are relying on this massive array of visual safety nets without even realizing it.
Oh, totally. Like reading body language.
Exactly. You're reading body language, you're tracking subtle facial expressions to see if they understand you, you are even subconsciously lip reading to help process the sounds.
And you can gesture. I mean, you can point to things, but the moment you pick up a phone, all of that is just completely stripped away.
Get going.
You are essentially thrown into a sensory deprivation tank. There's no body language. There's no time to quietly pull up a dictionary tab on your browser.
All right, you can't just pause and translate in your head.
No. It is just pure, unadulterated voice demanding an instant reaction in real time. It completely explains that familiar, jarring stomach drop we all get when the ringer goes off.
It really does. Because the cognitive load spikes immensely right in that second. You're forced to decode a compressed audio signal, translate it, formulate a response, and then translate that back.
While trying to sound, professional and relaxed.
Yes, all while maintaining a professional tone. It is exhausting.
Which is exactly why our mission for this deep dive is to build you an armor. We are unpacking a highly precise 10-phrase survival kit designed to navigate an English office phone call from the exact second you pick up the receiver to the moment you hang up.
And what's fascinating here is that these aren't just vocabulary words. I mean, we're looking at meticulously engineered social tools.
Tools to do what, exactly?
Well, they are linguistic mechanisms designed to do very specific jobs, like project warmth, establish professional boundaries, and, most importantly, de-escalate the tension that naturally arises when you have a misunderstanding.
Okay, let's trace the anatomy of a call, starting right in that stomach-dropping moment. So the phone is ringing, you pick up the receiver. The absolute first thing out of your mouth should follow a strict formula, which is, hello, your name speaking.
Right.
So like, hello, Alex speaking. You should never, under any circumstances, just pick up and say, hello.
The psychology behind that is actually brilliant. Because if you just say hello, you instantly create a conversational void.
A void.
Yeah, you're forcing the caller to do all the heavy lifting. They now have to stop and ask, hi, who is this?
Yeah.
Or have I reached the right department?
Oh, I see.
So from a social negotiation standpoint, if you make the caller do the work of establishing who is in the room, you are immediately on the defensive.
You've essentially handed over all the momentum of the conversation before it even starts.
Exactly.
And the specific addition of the word speaking is so fascinating to me. You could technically say, hello, this is Alex, but speaking is just vastly more effective.
It really is.
It serves as an immediate status report. It tells the caller, hey, the connection is solid, you have reached a human being, and this is my identity. Boom. You've nailed the first impression and taken control.
It establishes absolute clarity right out of the gate. And, once you've established who you are, the caller will usually introduce themselves. So let's say it's John from finance. Your next move is the offer. You ask, how can I help?
Okay, let's unpack this, because this is where direct translation from a native language to English can get you into huge trouble.
Oh, massive trouble.
Because if you just directly translate the concept of, finding out their needs, you might end up saying, what do you want? Which gives off massive angry mom energy.
Angry mom energy. That is a perfect way to describe it.
Right. Like, why are you bothering me?
Yeah, because linguistically, what do you want is purely transactional language. It focuses entirely on the object of desire, essentially demanding data from the other person.
It's demanding.
Right. It frames the interaction as a confrontational demand, whereas how can I help is relational language.
Ah.
It prioritizes the human connection first. It frames the interaction as a collaborative service.
It says, I am a resource for you, rather than, why are you in my space?
Exactly. And that tiny shift in phrasing completely alters the psychological footing of the entire conversation that follows.
I buy that completely. But I do have a major bone to pick with the next survival phrase in the source.
Oh.
Yeah, let's say John from finance starts launching into this massive, complicated story about a spreadsheet error. The phrase we were supposed to use here is this a good time?
Right.
Now, wait a minute. If John called me, Shouldn't he be the one asking if it's a good time?
Seems that way.
Why on earth am I asking him? It feels entirely backward, like I didn't interrupt his day.
Logically, you are absolutely right. The burden really should be on the person initiating the interruption. But we have to look at the psychology of the caller in that specific moment.
Okay.
We experience a phenomenon called cognitive tunneling. So when someone picks up the phone to call you, they are deeply focused on their own immediate need.
Right, they have an agenda.
Exactly. They have mentally rehearsed what they want to say, and the moment they hear a voice, they just start unloading. They are completely blind to whatever reality you are sitting in.
Right, they have no idea I'm frantically trying to finish an email that's due in 2 minutes.
Precisely. So by asking, is this a good time, you are utilizing a highly effective psychological mechanism. It functions as a mutual escape hatch.
An escape hatch?
Yeah, you are gently halting their momentum without rejecting them outright.
So it's not actually about their time at all. I mean, it's a polite fiction.
Dude.
It's the socially lubricated way of saying, this is actually a terrible time for me, but I'm going to frame it as a question to let us both save face.
Yes, you're offering them a polite way out. If you're drowning in a spreadsheet yourself, this phrase snaps them out of their cognitive tunnel and gives both of you permission to pause.
And reschedule.
Right, to reschedule without anyone feeling dismissed or offended. You protect your boundaries while maintaining the professional relationship.
That is incredibly subtle and so much better than just saying, I'm busy, call back.
Oh, definitely.
So we've successfully established contact and set the terms of the engagement. But managing the person on the other end is one thing. What happens when the person they actually want isn't even there?
The missing coworker scenario. This is where phone skills are truly stress tested.
Because you're dealing with unpredictable variables.
Exactly.
Let's set the scene for the listener. John from finance finally gets to the point. He doesn't want you, he actually wants your coworker, Mark. But Mark is nowhere to be found. The survival phrase here is a classic, can I take a message?
Which is arguably the greatest pressure relief valve in office communication.
Oh, I believe it.
I mean, think about the anxiety of picking up the phone. When John asks for Mark, and you see Mark's empty chair, your brain registers an unresolved loop.
Yeah, it's a problem that needs solving.
Right, and you might feel a sudden misplaced burden to solve John's finance problem yourself, just to close that loop.
Yes. You feel like you have to be helpful, so you start digging into files you don't even understand.
And you inevitably make things worse.
Always.
By immediately deploying, can I take a message? You fundamentally redefine your role in the interaction. You are unilaterally deciding that you are no longer the problem solver.
You just seamlessly transition into the role of a simple information gatherer.
Exactly.
You literally just grab a pen and the pressure vanishes. All you have to do is transcribe a name and a number. You don't have to know anything about finance.
It manages the interaction perfectly without forcing you to take on the actual intellectual labor the caller is requesting.
But let's say you do know where Mark is. Like maybe he's just down the hall in the break room and you know he's been desperately waiting for this exact call from finance. So you need to go get him.
Right, you have to put the caller on hold.
The phrase to use here is, hold the line, please.
Yeah.
And I have to admit, hold the line sounds delightfully retro to me. It makes me feel like a switchboard operator in a 1940s movie plugging cables into a wall.
It does have a certain classic formality to it, for sure, but it remains the absolute gold standard for professional office environments.
Really? Why not just say, wait?
Well, primarily because of what the alternative is. The instinct for a lot of people, especially when translating quickly from a second language, is just to say, wait.
I will confess I have absolutely panicked in the past and just said, wait a minute, and put the phone down. And the advice in our source material is that doing that is catastrophic. Like, it is literally how businesses lose clients.
It is. If we look at the linguistics, wait is an imperative verb. It is a command with absolutely zero softening.
Wow, zero.
It is the verbal equivalent of shoving someone into a chair.
A verbal shove. That
Yeah.
makes total sense. It feels so aggressive when you put it like that.
It is. And we also have to consider the environment of a phone call. Silence on a phone line is deeply unnerving.
Oh, it's the worst.
Think about it. If you are standing in an elevator with someone in silence, it's fine because you have visual confirmation that they're still there.
Right.
But if a phone line goes silent without proper context, the caller assumes the connection is dead, or worse, that they've just been abandoned.
And hold the line, please, solves both of those problems.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because it uses linguistic softening, it provides a clear instruction, it explains the current status of the reality that the line is literally being held open, and it softens the command with please.
So it reassures the caller that they are in a temporary managed holding pattern.
Yes.
It's basically the difference between slamming a door in someone's face while you go find Mark versus inviting them to sit on a comfortable couch in the waiting room.
That is a perfect analogy. You are managing their physical experience of the delay.
Okay, so managing a missing person is one thing. But what happens when the friction isn't about who they want, but what they're actually saying?
Ah, yes.
We have all been there. The connection gets garbled, someone walks past your desk and distracts you, or you just zone out for 3 seconds and you miss a crucial piece of information.
The dreaded audio crisis.
Yes.
It induces panic in native speakers, but if you are operating in a second language, it feels like an absolute disaster.
Complete panic. Your brain just goes blank. But the survival phrase here is remarkably simple. It's just, sorry, what was that?
Simple, but highly effective.
And the magic ingredient, the absolute linchpin of this phrase, is the word sorry.
Remove the sorry and say it out loud. I mean, just ask, what was that?
What was that? Oof. Yeah, it sounds instantly irritated.
It really does.
It sounds like a challenge, like I'm accusing them of mumbling or being unintelligible.
It shifts from being a request for clarification to a direct accusation. The psychology of adding sorry is actually profound. You are intentionally taking the burden of the misunderstanding onto your own shoulders.
Wow, okay.
You are signaling, my apologies, my ear failed to catch that, rather than you are failing at speaking. It is the ultimate de-escalation tactic.
And what's really reassuring to remember for the listener is that if you are learning English, you might feel deeply embarrassed to ask someone to repeat themselves. You assume they are judging your language skills.
But native English speakers use this phrase constantly.
Right.
We truly do, because telecommunications technology is inherently flawed. Phones compress audio signals. Background noise happens. Cell towers drop packets of data. Asking for clarification is a completely standard, expected part of the modern phone experience.
Which brings us to the absolute peak of the audio crisis, the spelling protocol.
Oh, this is crucial.
Imagine the caller has a highly complex name, something like Bartholomew, and they are rattling off their email address at light speed, Barthol, and you are completely lost by the third letter.
It happens so fast.
The phrase you need is, could you spell that? Or how do you spell that?
This brings up what I consider the golden rule of professional communication. Never, ever pretend you understood something when you didn't.
But it is so incredibly tempting. I mean, the awkwardness of the silence is building, and you just want the interaction to move forward, so you just type B-A-R-T and then just mash the keyboard, hoping you can Google it later.
It is a universally tempting shortcut. We all want to avoid the awkwardness. But it is a massive professional liability.
Because you get it wrong.
Almost always. Human memory is remarkably bad at holding on to strings of isolated letters over an audio connection. We rely on a cognitive system called the phonological loop, and it gets easily overwhelmed.
Especially in a second language.
Exactly. And particularly because English letters sound so similar over a phone. Think about B, K, V, D, T, E, C. They all blend together into one sound.
So if you fake it, you end up sending a confidential contract to the wrong email address, or you misspell a key client's name in the master database, which can be highly offensive.
Exactly. When you stop the caller and ask, could you spell that? It is not a sign of weakness. It is not an admission of poor language skills. It is an active demonstration of diligence.
You're showing you care.
Yes. You are signaling to the caller that their specific data is so important to you that you demand total accuracy. And honestly, most people are more than happy to spell out their difficult names because they are so used to the rest of the world getting it wrong.
You are showing them that you care enough to get it right. Okay, so you've navigated the bumpy middle of the call. You painstakingly got the correct spelling of Bartholomew. Now it is time to execute what might be the hardest maneuver in any social interaction.
Getting off the phone.
The graceful exit. Here's where it gets really interesting.
Ending a conversation without causing offense is a delicate art.
Let's say John from finance still really wants Mark. You've taken a message, but he keeps pushing to be transferred. How do you definitively close that avenue and get off the phone?
Right. How do you shut it down?
I have a confession to make. Whenever I need to forcefully end a call or protect a coworker, I rely on a total polite fiction. I just tell them, she's in a meeting.
It is the absolute bedrock of corporate communication worldwide. She's in a meeting, or he's in a meeting.
And it is a giant open secret. Sometimes, sure, Mark is actually in a conference room with a whiteboard, but like 80% of the time, he's in a meeting simply translates to, he does not want to talk to you right now, or he's too busy to deal with your problem.
It forces us to ask a really interesting question about human interaction, though. Why do we rely on these fictions? Why not just tell the truth?
Well, because if I told John Mark is currently eating a bagel at his desk and actively ignoring your calls, society would break down.
It really would. The friction of absolute truth in professional settings would be unbearable. Relationships would be instantly destroyed.
Totally.
So, he's in a meeting, provides an unassailable, perfectly neutral reason for a person's unavailability. A caller cannot reasonably be angry at the concept of a meeting. It is an immovable object.
And everyone playing the game knows the rules. I mean, John knows Mark might just be avoiding him. You know it, Mark knows it. But we all agree to accept the polite fiction because it protects the professional veneer.
Exactly. It's a shield.
And variations like she's out of the office or he's away from his desk serve the exact same protective function.
They do. But if you were going to deploy that protective shield, you have an obligation to follow it up with a commitment. You cannot just say, he's in a meeting, and abruptly hang up.
Right. You have to transition to the callback. You must say, I'll call you back, or he'll call you back. And there is a cardinal rule here from our source that is absolutely vital.
You must attach a specific time frame to that commitment.
Yes. You cannot leave it open-ended.
Managing expectations is critical here. If you just say, he'll call you back, without a time frame, you have effectively trapped the caller in an open loop of anxiety.
They don't know if they can go grab lunch. They don't know if they can step away from their desk. They are just held hostage by the expectation of this vague callback.
And conversely, if a full day goes by and they haven't heard from you, they will naturally assume you've completely forgotten about them, which instantly destroys trust.
So bad for business.
By adding a time frame, even a broad one, like I'll call you back this afternoon or he'll call you back tomorrow morning, you close that loop.
You give them back their autonomy.
Exactly. They know they don't have to worry about it until tomorrow.
It's a tiny addition, but it completely changes their experience of the delay.
Okay, we have reached the very end of the line. Everything is wrapped up. You've managed the friction. You've promised the callback, and you need to actually end the connection. The final phrase is, talk to you soon.
It's a very warm, classic closing. But the truly fascinating part is what you are explicitly told never to say. You should almost never use the word goodbye.
It sounds incredibly harsh to the modern professional ear.
It feels like a funeral. It sounds so intensely final. If you just say goodbye and click the receiver, it feels like you are launching the caller into outer space. You are severing the tie forever.
That's because goodbye lacks any concept of continuity. In business, continuity is everything. Talk to you soon, on the other hand, implies a continuous, ongoing relationship.
It's future-facing.
Yes. It suggests that this specific phone call was just one small, pleasant interaction in a long, healthy partnership.
Even if you were secretly praying you never have to speak to John from finance ever again.
Exactly. The polite fiction of talk to you soon maintains the architecture of the professional relationship, regardless of your personal feelings.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener, sitting at your desk waiting for that phone to ring? We've gone through the 10 phrases, we've unpacked the deep psychology and linguistic softening behind them, but there is one final piece of homework here. Oh, this is the most important part.
You cannot just listen to this deep dive, nod your head, and assume you're ready. These phrases must be practiced out loud.
Reading them silently on a screen will not help you in the moment.
No.
Yeah.
If you just read them, the knowledge stays trapped in your eyes. Phone English needs to live in your mouth. You have to physically say them out loud. Say them to the wall of your office. Say them to your dog.
It is fundamentally about building muscle memory. Your motor cortex needs to practice the physical movements of your tongue and lips, forming these specific English phonotactics.
So that when that sudden, jarring ring happens and the adrenaline spikes, you don't have to think.
Yeah.
You bypass the translation delay entirely.
Right.
Your mouth just automatically knows how to form, hello, Alex speaking, buying your brain those crucial extra seconds to process who is actually on the line.
You are reducing the cognitive load before the interaction even begins. You know, we have spent all this time rigorously analyzing English phone etiquette and the precise mechanics of these 10 phrases.
But I'd like to leave the listener with a broader thought to chew on.
I'd love to hear it.
Think about your own native language, whatever it happens to be. Think about the phone calls you make every day in your native tongue. How much of all professional communication, no matter where you are on the globe, is actually just relying on these exact kinds of pre-programmed scripts and polite fictions?
Wow, yeah.
Are we ever really improvising at work? Or are these linguistic tools just the universal armor we all wear to protect ourselves from the chaotic, unpredictable reality of dealing with other humans?
That is a brilliant way to reframe it. We aren't just learning vocabulary, we are putting on our armor. Next time that work phone rings and your stomach drops, just take a breath. You've got your scripts, you are ready.